Severus Snape might be one of the most polarizing characters in the Harry Potter series. He comes across as absolutely dreadful in the first few books, but upon learning of Snape's love for Lily, most people feel like he's redeemed. Apparently, it's absolutely fine to hold vendettas against 10-year-old boys when you have a weird attachment to their mothers. The real question is, of course, whether or not Snape's obsession with Lily is even love in the first place. You think of Snape's love, and you may imagine the scene of him crying over her body or of them as children in the field. What better to express how long-lasting and heart-wrenching his rejection was? These scenes make it easy to shake your fist at James Potter and curse him for stealing Snape's woman. Except, Lily never loved Snape in a romantic way. There's nothing to prove that if he hadn't called her a mudblood, that they would have ended up together anyway. Snape has this view that when you're nice to a girl and you like her, she's obligated to like you. He's a token example of what the words nice guy means in today's society, fedora tip and all. He's a preacher of the friend zone and the fact that it's never your fault if a girl isn't interested in you. In Book 8 of Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle discusses with his students different types of friendship. We have utility, where you need the person for what they do for you, pleasure, where you need the person for how they make you feel, and virtuous, where you consistently want what's best for that person, regardless of how it may affect you. Snape's avid disregard for the fact that Lily does not love him and rather loves James shows that he cares very little about her well-being in comparison to his own feelings. James develops to become a better person in the time that Lily knew him, whereas Snape did not. He continues to view James as the petty 15-year-old who held him upside down. This leads to him having underlying hatred for Lily's own son, a fact that would have appalled Lily had she lived to see it. Snape takes Lily's rejection as solely caused by James Potter and bullies Harry due to simple resemblance. This isn't even to speak on the fact that he did sell James and Lily out, pleading in the end only for the life of his love, not the lives of her loves. He was absolutely fine with the deaths of James and Harry Potter as long as Lily continued to live. Snape is well aware of the abuse the Dursleys put him through at home, and was most likely also aware of the fact that Harry's only safe haven was Hogwarts. Despite all this, he bullies Harry and attempts to make his life hell in all areas he possibly can. Snape himself as a child was abused, and should therefore understand the difficult life Harry had put upon him. This would have been a prime time to empathize with Harry and his situation, but he doesn't. He continues to bully and disregard any action a mentally mature person would do, much like the abusive parents we see frequently light up the big screen. Snape doesn't exclusively bully Harry, he also brutally bullies Neville. Neville's life has been extremely difficult.
Oh, Neville. People die every day. Friends. Family.
His parents were tortured to insanity, and his family had such a blatant disregard for his safety that they would dangle him out of windows in hopes that he would show magic. Neville's biggest fear should have been Bellatrix Lestrange, the woman that drove his parents to insanity. Instead, his biggest fear, the man that shows up as his boggart, is Severus Snape. A man that he should have been able to trust and respect is instead so severe in his treatment that he earns a spot as the child's biggest fear. Snape consistently uses every method possible to actively mentally abuse children. During Harry's occlumency lessons, Snape chooses to belittle him and handle Harry in ways teachers should never handle students. Even as a child, Snape still holds prejudices and racist tendencies. He calls Lily a mudblood. Regardless of whether he was embarrassed or not, he still used a slur against someone he considered a friend and supposedly loved. That's like using the N-word because your friend upsets you. It's not okay to use slurs regardless of emotions behind them. Snape still chooses to become a Death Eater, to continue with his biases rather than educate himself. Snape chooses to be ignorant, and that is unforgivable. His ignorance continues all the way into his adulthood, and it makes him an awful teacher. He is still biased against Muggleborns, even going as far as to make fun of Hermione for wanting to learn.
That is the second time you have spoken out of turn, Miss Granger. Are you incapable of restraining yourself, or do you take pride in being an insufferable know-it-all?
Teachers should encourage learning and not demean it. Instead of encouraging students to be forward-thinking, he encourages students that are known to bully peers in much the same way he himself does. You can argue that Snape favored Draco Malfoy due to the struggles put upon him by his family and the situation that they put him in. But that really only seems to be a factor later in the series, such as in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Previous to that, Snape seems to show favoritism purely because Draco bullies people that Snape himself dislikes. Despite the argument that Snape is fighting for the good side, he leaves students severely ill-equipped, especially considering potions is an incredibly important subject in the fight against Voldemort. He favors students with parentage on the side of Voldemort, students who would likely become Death Eaters themselves. By doing this, he gives the light side an obvious disadvantage. Snape is incredibly selfish with the way in which he handles the people around him. He consistently bullies students who only want to achieve in the exact environment he fails them in. Snape's love, or obsession more accurately, for Lily does not excuse his actions, his ignorance, or his overall awful teaching.